Welcome to another episode of 100 Ways to Make 100K. I'm your host, Javon.ca, and we're on the hunt to find 100 different ways to make 100 grand a month. In this episode, I can't wait to introduce you to a very special entrepreneur. Now think for a second. If you were told no every single time you told someone your business idea, do you think you would still go through with it? Now, Nick has been told no countless of times. From starting Gatsby's, one of the biggest clubs in London, to Live Fit Foods and scaling it countrywide, now Ethy Food Group and Denovia Labs. I can't wait for you to hear his story on how he's grown this to one of the biggest companies in the category countrywide and now has plans to go international. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Nick Spina.
All right, so I feel like I'll butcher your intro. And there's too many things, there's too many titles, there's so many hats that you wear. I would love to hear, who's Nick Spina? You know, if someone were to ask.
Good question. I get so excited on my ideas that I can't sleep until they come to fruition, and I will not stop until they do come to fruition. That's me in a nutshell.
Well, I'm excited to bust open this shell and really explore, you know, all those nuances and adventures and journeys that turned you into who you are today. So, you know, take me back, Nick. You remember the first time you made 100 grand in a year?
First time I made 100 grand. I do.
Because some people right now are literally just looking and they're seeing this factory with all these things going on behind you, but you started out just where? You know, at school, at home, just thinking about some crazy stuff, maybe working a job. I'd love to hear, you know, where this whole sort of story unfolded.
You know what? So I had a pretty bad accident when I was 18. I broke a number of places in my face. I actually broke my cheekbone in 7 places. I was in, I had trouble reading, you know, remembering things. My eye had a lot of damage. So I had to recover from that. But I had a lot of time to think about, hey, what the hell do I want to do? And so I decided to, right out of high school, I got right into business. So I knew I wanted to get into business. I knew I wanted to make money. I started managing and bartending when I was 18. Sorry. Not 18, I was 19, okay? So I got hired at a local bar that fit about 700 people.
Okay.
I walked in, and actually, when I was in there one night, I wasn't hired yet, I didn't know anybody there. I looked at my friend and I said, I'm gonna be the manager of this place one day.
Now, why was that the aspiration? You break your face and all of a sudden you think you want to get into business and make money, so you go to a bar and you say, I'm gonna manage this? Was that the highest that you could see at the time?
Well, I think like, when I had that incident happen, it was probably a low for me at that time for sure.
Yeah.
And it was an experience that probably most people don't get to go through. Thankfully, It's a good thing.
Yeah.
But it also made me think hard on what I wanted to do with my life. So I decided that I wanted to do something with myself. At the time of being 19 and running a venue like that on my own was the ultimate dream.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to achieve. I went in there and I remember looking over the railing with my friend and the place was filled. And I looked at him and said, you know what, I'm going to run this place one day. Within a year I did.
Okay.
And it was weird. You know, there's no way to quantify exactly, you know, how I made that real. But I got hired on as a bartender at first. And then I worked my way up all the way up to the general manager of the place. I don't think the owner knew how old I was. And then within another year, or two, actually, I became I basically ran with a few others, like the entire hospitality group.
Wow.
Yeah, across Canada. So
Wow.
I had like 400 staff. I was 21.
Holy.
That was an incredible experience of running hotels and bars and restaurants and all that kind of good stuff, all the way to Whistler.
Okay.
So quite a great experience at that age of running a large team and attracting talent and whatnot to run a large ship, right? And then I, you know, kind of got tired of working for somebody else, and I wanted to make my own money completely.
Yeah.
And have my own autonomy. So I had the opportunity come up when I was 23. I had just turned 23. It was in the summer, so 22, 23. I found a venue that was closed that fit about 2,500 people. And I had saved up maybe 30 grand of my own money, which is a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
I had a friend that lent me $40,000.
Okay.
And I took that to the closed place. It had been closed for maybe 5 years or something. And I said, hey, look, I want to come in here. I want to pack this place. I want to buy it from you. And he said, okay, that's what we'll do. Right? I was like, holy shit, I might bet to actually do this.
Yeah.
Right. And he was kind of an OG retired hospitality veteran. And he goes, he comes back to me a week later. He says, Nick, we got about a month to open this place before the students come back. We got to get in there quick. You're going to need help to open this thing. I know construction. You know how to run the business. I'll come in there, renovate it. You give me the money to renovate it, and we'll do this 50-50.
So hold on, this was the current owner?
Yeah, this was the owner of the closed down venue.
Wow.
Okay. So then I go, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm really young, but fuck it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's go. It was so
Yeah.
exciting, right?
Yeah.
Extremely nervous.
Yeah.
I remember, so like I said, we papered the agreement. I own 50%, he owned 50%.
Of the company or of the building?
Of the company.
Okay.
That was, our venue together.
Yeah. Did you end up owning
we leased it.
Leased it. Okay,
yeah, we
understood.
leased, but we owned everything inside of it.
Okay.
Speakers and like all the assets and whatnot.
Yeah.
We had 1 month. I'm not kidding you, to renovate another 20,000 square foot facility.
Wow.
On opening night, the walls were still wet with paint.
Wow.
We had 2 speakers in this entire facility, okay?
Probably nowhere close to enough.
Oh, yeah, we needed 30, right? And I remember we didn't even get booze in the building until like 8 p.m. or something like that. It was insane. But used every last dollar that I had, every last penny that I had into that place. And I remember 8:30 rolls around, and I walk outside in the parking lot, and I puke. I'm so nervous that I puked.
What?
Because I started to realize, I'm like, if this doesn't pack up,
We're done for.
my life could take a direction that I'm going to have to financially recover from. Because $30,000 at the time was a lot of money for me.
Dude, that's everything.
Right.
Yeah.
I put it all on the line.
Yeah.
But then 9 o'clock rolls around. One person rolls across the parking lot. Okay? Then 10 people. Then 20 people. Then 50. Then 1,000. Then 2,000.
Wow.
We fucking packed the parking lot full of people, and people couldn't wait to get in. And then I thought, wow, we got people here. Now what's next?
Now
we
what?
got to keep them, right?
Yeah.
So then we packed the place. The place, 2 speakers were there. Walls were wet with paint, like I said. Everyone had a great time, though.
Yeah.
People were just pumped that someone of my age was able to open something up like that.
Especially something that was probably like a legacy building in the city. Like everyone probably saw it.
It was.
Like this was down for 5 years, right?
It was down for 5 years, right? And
Crazy.
then, we became the biggest thing that London had ever seen for a couple of
Nice.
years.
Wow.
So essentially that, in my career, I, was working at another venue, built up all my relationships, built up a little bit of capital, saved some money, had the opportunity to put it all on the line to go out to project my life or my career life forward, and it worked out. I put everything into it. I feel like I had the right tools and I had the right relationships around me to make it real. So that was the first time that I had actually made $100,000 in a year.
Now, how was the fear of opening night in comparison to the accident?
Different.
Yeah.
Yeah, the accident was a different type of. It was definitely a very low time.
Yeah.
But it's a different type of fear.
Yeah.
And that also brings a lot of perspective to life, though, in general, because you actually need negativity for positivity. You can't have positivity without negativity.
Yeah.
So I find that a lot of entrepreneurs that have adversity in life actually. It's almost like a motivator.
It's fuel.
It's fuel, right? Because you know how bad it can get,
Yeah.
so you reach for the stars.
Yeah.
Right? So, and that is probably synonymous with the majority of my entrepreneurial friends as well. There's something that happened to them at some point in time that made them say, fuck that. I'm not going to let life kind of pull me down.
Yeah.
I'm going to fight my way to the top.
And if it's not too personal, can you get into like what had happened?
Yeah, essentially it was, I was 18 and, I got into a scenario where unfortunately I can't dive into too many details.
Understood.
But yeah, it wasn't fun,
Yeah.
to say the least.
I had a similar situation.
Did you?
It was my appendix ruptured,
Oh shit.
and then I had a bunch of different complications, a bunch of surgeries after. But literally, like after that moment, it's like this is what real loss is. You know, this is like the lowest of the low. Like,
Right.
I may as well put it all on the line. Like I may as well go all in, because like if that's the downside, and you compare it to the downside of losing 30 grand or 50 grand or 100 grand, it's nowhere close in comparison.
Right.
You know, so
it's it's funny, and it's not funny actually, but it's
Yeah.
like there's millions of people in the hospital right now on life support that
Yeah.
would fucking die. Sorry, not that. They would absolutely love to have your position,
100%.
right? So they
100%.
would love to have the opportunity to lose $30,000
Yeah.
and still be able to walk around
Yeah.
and eat and enjoy time with their friends.
Bro,
and
they would
family,
trade
right?
more than 30 grand in a heartbeat, I bet.
in a heartbeat.
When did you gain that perspective? Like, did that not come till later, or was that because when you're in the middle of it, it's hard to see that in a lot of
Definitely.
cases, right?
You're definitely in a cloud.
Yeah.
But it came probably within 6 months.
Yeah.
Probably within 6 months. I've always been, someone that I'm very resilient.
Okay.
But I got knocked off the horse for a bit.
Yeah.
But I knew somewhere in me that I was gonna get back up on it, no matter what.
So
what it took.
during that time in the first bartender job, when it was your dream to run the first spot, right? You get to this point where things start changing and you start feeling this desire, this hunger to do more.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through that transition? Because at first that was the biggest thing that you could see, but it seemed like quickly after, your perspective started to shift. What were you sort of feeling at the time? And what were some of the things that were attractive to you, and where was your mind in that space?
You know what? There's a feeling that I've always had come in different waves, but it is a type of feeling where it really does feel somewhat like a fire, and also like a vision, where I see something and I'm like, that's my goal, and I'm going to do whatever I can to get to that goal and not let anything get in the way of that. And really, the only thing that can get in the way is distractions, right? So are you going to go reach your goal, or are you going to go party with your friends, right? So, I mean, when I was 18 and that accident happened, was not the first time I had that was the first time I had ever experienced something to that level. But I've had multiple things like that happen along the way in different shapes or forms. So, but I've always, you just have to have that mentality of just keep on going, right? It sounds so cliche, but it's true. You got to stay fucking hard and, just not let anything get in your way of achieving that dream.
It's crazy because it's one of those things that you always hear, and then something happens in your life and you get reminded of that lesson, and like it's like 10 times more meaningful after you go through the experience. Like after you touch the stove and get burned, like all of a sudden that lesson of, yeah, it's hot, don't touch it, actually means something.
Well, there's actually the other side of it too, which isn't good.
Okay.
Because in this, I'm going to call this dream the sun. Okay.
This dream of
the dream, whatever your vision, the
Okay.
dream that you want to achieve is. Okay.
okay.
So you can actually get too close to the sun. And what I mean by that is, so most people are motivated by negative factors such as fear.
Okay.
But when you get closer to the sun, that motivator starts to diminish. So that means that as soon as you get closer to the sun, you're getting to a place where psychologically it's more comfortable, you have more money, you can afford a lot of fun things, but because of those exact things, you might take your foot off the gas,
Yeah.
which will cause problems to start going away from the sun. So that is something that people experience as well, where you can actually, in fact, get too close to the sun.
And did that happen to you?
It did.
So walk me through it, because it probably happened at the first venue, then you bought the second one, and then you probably got close to the sun and you're like, is there hotter than this?
Yeah, you know what? I think like you can be surrounded by, a lot of money gets involved.
Yeah.
A lot of people start to get really greedy,
Okay.
unfortunately. And when you start talking in quantums of, when there's let's say excess of millions involved, people are like, whatever, could I, somehow benefit myself by not being a team player with everybody here? And especially in a large entity, it takes a lot of people to help grow it.
Yeah.
Right. So the dynamic of it changes as the quantums of money get larger. Right. So you really have to make sure you have the right people involved with your team. And, a lot of, let's say, billionaire friends of mine, it is synonymous between all of them that they have a very, very tight circle of partners and friends around them.
Yeah.
And then the rest of them are all associates. So I think that is very important to know as you're growing in your life journey, in your career journey, that, the people that are with you, and your gut will tell you.
Yeah.
Right? Are these the people that are going to be the ride or die people when you go to the stars or not, right?
It sounds like you've had a lot of shedding to do.
Always. Man.
Yeah. Well, hey man, that's life, right?
Part of the game.
Yeah, as it goes.
Right.
So you remember the first time you made $100,000 in a month?
In a month?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Take me back.
Um,
It was a long, spooky night. No, I'm
It
joking.
was a long, spooky night. Won the lottery. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah, congrats.
No, it was exhilarating. But I think at the point that you're making those quantums, that you're so focused on the game
Yeah.
and your day-to-day tasks that it's almost irrelevant.
Okay.
And it's not irrelevant, but it's also not like, something that is very common that people say when you do make, that types of dollars is, you might make a lot of money, but you don't have time to enjoy it. Right. So that is also something that's important, that, you are cutting out time blocks for yourself to actually go enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
And even, he's he used to be a bigger idol of mine when I was younger. But
And you got closer to the sun, right?
yeah, but what's his name? Hathaway.
Okay.
One of the what's his name again?
Is it Gary?
Warren Buffett.
Okay.
Yeah, Warren Buffett. And
Berkshire Hathaway. Sorry.
sorry,
My fault.
Berkshire Hathaway.
All right.
Yeah, so he doesn't book meetings anymore, and he says, "What's the point of making money if you don't have time?" So it's a very valid point, right? So you want to have money to be able to have more time to, do things with the money, right?
Yeah.
Which is quite fascinating, and something that I didn't relate to until I started climbing up in my journey.
Yeah. And what was it that changed that made you realize that? Were you slammed back to back? Did you have too many things going on at a certain point? Did you maybe get into another accident that made you kind of realize that?
No, not another accident. I just think business is a series of challenges as you're climbing the mountain.
Yeah.
Right. You might be climbing a mountain one way, but you might discover, oh, it's too snowy over here. I got to go over here now. And then you might be like, oh shit, there's boulders falling down this way.
Yeah.
How to maneuver around this? It's the same thing in business.
Yeah.
Right. There's always going to be something that comes at you, but just like climbing a mountain, you can't really take a break. You have to keep climbing.
You have to.
Right? So that is something important to note, that while you are climbing this mountain, you are planning these breaks so you can, just enjoy life as it is.
Yeah.
And then kind of get back in the game and get back at it. Because regardless of what people say, I got to work 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably work pretty damn close to that. But you do have to set aside a time for yourself to keep life balanced, right? Because not everything is about money, right? It's also about friendships, family, your health. That's a big one. A lot of really wealthy people that I know have forgotten about their health, right? And then at some point, when they realize that, hey, I have to worry about my health now. Sure, the money aspect of your life is well then covered.
Yeah.
But this half is very lacking. A really great. Something I'll never forget. Have you ever played the game The Sims?
The Sims?
Yeah. Okay. Do you remember when you're managing your sim, that there's like 10 different areas of like, one's hygiene,
Yeah.
one is health, one is sleep, one is money, one is,
It's almost like RuneScape.
kind of exactly. And that's real life though.
Yeah,
You know, you
100%.
actually have to do that. When you are lacking severely in one end, you start to feel it.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care who you are. Some people might be like, oh, I don't care about friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like at our core, you know, our ancestors needed friends to survive.
Yeah.
Right? And you needed that kind of friend or camaraderie mentality to be able to feel safe and whatever it is. So, you know, a lot of people say, hey, it's lonely at the top. It's very true. You know, but put some energy into maintaining your friendships.
Yeah.
Because what's the point of making money without having fun with your friends?
Literally, it's crazy, and I'm sure you probably like lost some relationships along the way that meant a lot to you, as a lot of people have. You know, it's like Lee and I were having a conversation about this literally on the way here. You know, about going through things with certain people, and you know, certain people that you think are gonna go with you to the end. It's like you lose those, and it makes you really question relationships as a whole and
Right.
cherish them in a different way.
Right.
You know, and draw certain lines and certain boundaries, and enter certain relationships with certain expectations and certain understanding.
Right.
You know?
And I think a really big thing that I learned along the way is, you know, you definitely have your real friendships,
Yeah.
and then there's people that you're associated with.
Okay.
And you really have to define the difference.
How do you define the two?
Well, I'll tell you, it was a hard learning experience.
I bet.
But when Gatsby, the bar that I owned, or the venue that I
That was
owned,
Gatsby's. That was you.
it was Gatsby.
Okay.
Yeah, we bought the most Red Bull in Canada, by the way,
Okay.
for like 2 years.
Wow.
It was
Okay.
something insane. They
Do
loved
you
us.
hold any other crazy records like that?
100%. Yeah.
We'll dive into
It was great. We
Okay.
were the first people to bring the chain smokers to town.
Very cool.
You know, to Canada. It
Yeah.
was like there's a whole bunch of other ones,
Yeah.
but it's just important to keep that in mind while you're going along your journey,
Mm.
and also surround yourself with people who share the same kind of values.
Okay.
You know, that's important, right? And you'll find them as you go along.
Yeah.
And you know, everyone goes through these waves, right?
Okay.
So the people generally who are at the top of your wave might not stick around when you're at the bottom of a wave, right? But as long as you're resilient and you're constantly working to get towards your goal,
Yeah.
you know, and you're gonna have these waves going up, right?
Yeah.
The people will come around when it's convenient for them, but might disappear when it's not.
Understood.
So it's quite fascinating. I've been at the bottom of a wave a number of times. I've been at the top of the wave a number of times, and it continues just getting bigger and bigger.
Which part of your wave are you on right now?
I'm on an up,
On and up. Okay.
100%.
So
Yeah.
before we get too into the details of things, and we will shortly, I want to know what happened after Gatsby's. You know,
After Gatsby?
More so in Nick's life. You know, where
Yeah.
did your life take twists and turns? Because you kept mentioning this analogy of climbing the mountain.
Right.
And I know from climbing and snowboarding and doing all these mountain-related activities, like literally the background of my phone is a mountain, right?
Right.
And like sometimes when you're climbing, you get to this point where you can't go left or go right or continue to go up. You have to go back before you go forward.
One step back, 2 steps forward.
Exactly.
100%.
So walk us through some of the things that you've gone through after Gatsby's. I'd love to hear.
Yeah. So I actually, you know, I was eating out twice a day at a local restaurant.
Okay.
You know, health and fitness has always been a priority of mine.
Okay.
I
I
was
mean, you're a little jacked. You know,
a little bit.
A little bit.
I like to work out. Makes me
Yeah.
feel great.
Yeah.
I was eating out twice a day at a local restaurant. It was like $30 a meal at the time, which is
Okay.
a lot.
Yeah.
Salmon, rice, and broccoli.
Yeah.
Never forget it. Never been able to look at salmon and rice the same way again. And I kind of thought, hey, I need to think of another solution that's better than this one. At the time, I had come to the conclusion that I had reached my goal with the venue. I had it at capacity for 2 years.
Okay.
I made a lot of money at the time. That was a lot of money to me.
Yeah.
And then I had also kind of gone through, you know, hey, this person's a good friend of mine. This person, you know, is kind of just around me because they want to make money. But, you
Yeah.
know, it wasn't such a shocker to me, right? I was just kind of like, okay, like, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I really wanted to think of another solution that I couldn't grow the venue anymore. It was already at the ceiling. I wasn't interested in opening more.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be this 50-year-old owner, you know, of a student bar,
Yeah.
right? So I was like, you know what? I love this idea of food and getting into food into something scalable that is innovative and that could be a big use to a lot of people.
Okay.
So that's where the idea of Effie Group came about. And it was to bring on my own personal chef to make all my meals for me. That was a cost efficient and sustainable.
Okay.
And that's how it started.
Yeah.
We started in a little tiny, in the back of a friend's restaurant.
Wow.
When they were closed on Sundays. I went in there myself. I
Okay.
cooked all the meals because I wanted to make sure that I could learn everything in the business, that I wasn't relying on another partner, on him to keep up to that side of the bargain.
Yeah. Did
So-
you ever have to rely on some partner? Like, did you?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Now, yes,
Yeah,
of course, because we're gigantic.
Yeah.
But we have so many moving parts and different kind of silos of the business that we have a whole bunch of entrepreneurs that are working as a team together, and I'm
Cool.
supporting these entrepreneurs now. So people who generally are on their own journey, and I'm able to add resources to help them
Yeah.
win.
Yeah.
We essentially went in and I rented out a restaurant kitchen, a friend's restaurant
Okay.
kitchen called Typhoon.
Okay.
We cooked in there until we went in at 1 a.m. on Saturday mornings, which is Friday night, right?
So it was right after you left Gatsby's.
Right after. No, Gatsby was done.
Oh,
I
it was
already
done
out
at
of
this
it.
point. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I went because it was the summer. We closed
Yeah.
the summer.
Oh, okay.
I got right into it.
Yeah.
And we started making meals.
Okay.
The first week we made like 60 meals.
Wow.
Something important to note: there was absolutely no guarantee that this was going to work, other than me believing that it was.
Okay.
That's important. A lot of people won't start something until they have it in their hand, right? But I believe that I had the tools to get that in my hand.
Yeah.
I went in there. First week we cooked 60 meals. Second week 120. Third week 300. Fourth week, I was in that fucking restaurant. I'm not kidding you. I didn't sleep a single Saturday night, Sunday morning for probably a year and a half.
Wow.
There wasn't one.
Wow.
Okay, so there was 1 day a week that I was up overnight. Horrible for my health.
Wow.
But that's what I'm talking about. Don't get distracted. At that point, sleep was distracting me from achieving my goal. So I wouldn't even let sleep get in the way. So that's kind of like the mentality, is that I believe that majority of the people have the tools to actually succeed, but how much sacrifice and dedication do they want to give towards that?
Yeah.
Right? So some people might not be willing to lose their sleep. That's fine. I was. I knew I could achieve the goal. But, we are sitting in a massive facility right now, and that paid off.
Wow.
Right? So we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now, actually,
Literally.
if I hadn't sacrificed at that point.
100%, man. And shout out Typhoon.
Yeah.
For making that happen, and shout
100%.
out the lack of sleep.
100%.
Yeah. So, we went from the back of a tiny restaurant to a 30,000 square foot facility.
70. And we've got 4. We're about to have 4 across North America.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And
So
we've got another 100,000 square feet down the street. So all in all, we're probably at like 600,000 square feet.
And it started on Sunday or Saturday. It
Started technically Saturday at midnight or whatever it was.
and 160 meals, 120, 300,
Snowballed.
and it snowballed from there.
Kept going.
So how has the vision overall changed, or how has the mission and what it was that you were doing? Because you just set out at first to feed yourself, and then you said other people probably need this, and then how did it snowball and grow from there?
Right. I think you just have to take no from you can't never take no as an answer. You just
Yeah.
have to be like, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Do whatever I need to achieve it. And that's as simple as that. A lot of people might be like, okay, I want to do this. I'm going to go ask all my friends and see if it's a good idea.
Yeah.
And then their friends might be like, Nick, that's a stupid ass idea.
Yeah.
And it happened.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not kidding you. 90% of people told me that, hey, I've never seen this before. I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going to take that as an answer. I'm still doing it,
Yeah.
and that was like just having the attitude of not letting anything get in your way.
Yeah.
Right. And I still have that. Never letting anything get in your way of achieving your goals.
What type of hurdles are you jumping over these days?
Oh, tons.
Yeah.
It's every day. It's like playing whack-a-mole. Yeah, literally. It's like,
Yeah.
we're trying to change the world.
Yeah.
So the problems just get bigger.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's challenging. I think where it becomes really challenging is when you have a lot of problems stacking up in one short period of time.
Okay.
You know, and that's when you really have to buckle in.
Yeah.
And you're playing whack-a-mole on overdrive, right?
Wow.
But you have to have a team that has the same mentality as you and resilience, right? Because not a lot of people are built for it.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, a lot of people might buckle under the pressure, or, you know, that's why a lot of people quit jobs.
Yeah.
Right? I can't quit. So, and I never will.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, what's the point, right? Why quit?
You know, I quit.
Yeah.
I'm not the guy to go to the beach and relax.
No,
you know?
it's too boring.
I can't. I need to keep going.
Stimulated.
Right? Maybe one day, you
Yeah.
know? Thinking about having kids, getting married, and that kind of stuff in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
But even then, you know, I'm supported by her and whatnot in my journey. So
That's awesome.
it is nothing that is kind of pulling me down.
Yeah.
It's actually motivating me in quite positive ways.
So it started as LiveFit. This whole machine that we're in right now, it started
Right.
as LiveFit.
Right.
And
Talk about adapting. You have to adapt to the future.
Now talk to me. I mean, here's the thing, right? If you ask Michael Jordan all the pivots that he made in all of his games, he wouldn't be able to recall them. But I'm sure there's a couple pivots that you made that you like remember vividly that changed. I mean, that changed it from being the backup Typhoon into what other spaces did you have in between this? Like, there were probably a million stops along the way. I'm curious to know a couple of them.
Right. You know what? I think like a really big notable one was we had one of the world's largest meal kit companies approach us to purchase us.
Okay.
We're the biggest pioneer in fully cooked meals delivered across Canada, ever, right? So I had a decision to make. It was either to sell the entire business,
Okay.
or to raise capital and build a beast.
And why were those the only two decisions? Why couldn't you just continue business as usual?
Well, they would have. They were heavily capitalized.
Okay.
They wanted to get into ready-to-eat meals,
Okay.
which they did, and they didn't do that well at it. And but they would be a big competitor of ours, which we wanted to make sure that we remain number one.
Yeah.
So that was the decision. It was either gear up, raise the capital, and try and achieve the dreams, right?
Yeah. So was this your? I mean, when you bought Gatsby's, I don't know, was that really raising capital? Because you tried to buy the whole thing.
I borrowed $40,000.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Was that the most that you've raised prior to the raise for LiveFit?
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Okay, so can you paint like a picture of the size and scale that you were at when you raised capital?
With LiveFit?
Yeah, in terms of how big was the facility? How many meals were you doing? Like what?
Right, like we were in the millions.
Okay. Millions of meals?
Dollars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so millions of dollars. I had bootstrapped it for the first 5 years.
Yeah.
Profitable.
Okay.
You know, so it was. We ran a great business. I was the only partner.
Okay.
I was 100% shareholder.
Yeah.
So I decided, hey, you know, do we want to grow this a lot bigger? Should we get some capital in?
Mm-hmm.
And then what we decided to do actually was, you know, either we were going to spend the money on gaining new customers, or we were going to buy companies that already had the customers.
Okay.
So that's what we decided to do. We raised, you know, about $14 million, give or take. We brought on investors like Gary Vaynerchuk. We're partners at Gary Vaynerchuk. You know, Andy Smith is COO of FedEx Global. You know, Shmuel Fari, which is a real estate mogul. He's got over $5 billion in assets. So really, you know, people that invested in SpaceX, a lot of groups that, like a lot of institutional investors that run, you know, very incredible investment banks here in North America. So it was a fascinating experience. Like back in the day, you know, when I had nothing to my name, I would read Gary Vaynerchuk books, right? I used to read his fucking books. And the next thing you know, I'm on a phone call with him saying, Nick, let's fucking go. I want to be your partner, man. You know, like it just shows you that your vision can actually come to realization.
Yeah.
You know, if you stick to it and just not let anything get in your way.
That's crazy.
Right.
Like it's surreal to think like the idols that you look up to now you get to stand beside and create things with.
Right.
You know, all because of that determination of not wanting to give up. And even standing beside them isn't necessarily even the goal. It's changing the world for the better.
The goal always changes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Crazy.
it's always growing, right?
What is it? So at the time, prior to that potential acquisition and that fork in the road of raise, what was the goal then? What was the goal after you raised? What's the goal now?
Yeah, the goal then was just to continue growing LiveFit,
Yeah.
across Canada,
Yeah.
potentially into North America.
Yeah.
Then we raised the capital. We went out and bought a number of different companies, primarily in the food industry.
Okay.
We wanted to make LiveFit look much sexier because food was, food's food. You can only get so sexy with a meal in a container, right?
Yeah.
So we decided to bring a big, clean or green kind of focus to the company in terms of sustainability. So the worm farmer in a basement. We're partnered with a fantastic group called the Wormery in the Western Fair Association.
Okay.
So they manage it. We supply them with food scraps, which feeds the worms. The worms eat the food scraps, which turns it into worm castings, which is worm poop, and that gets delivered out for a variety of different uses of soil.
Wow.
Where you could imagine who would want that, like people who would be growing their own gardens and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Quite remarkable, and all of our packaging is 99% sustainable, which is great. But then we stumbled across a clean tech innovation with a group of scientists. It's a solution that can actually dissolve and upcycle plastic waste extremely fast, within 5 minutes, and we are the leaders on Earth in that industry. And that is now another venture of ours that we are adding a lot of firepower to, and it's its own kind of entity. And we brought multi-billion dollar partners to the table to partner on us with that. So, we have a goal to help clean up the world's plastic issue.
Wow.
And we truly do have an actual solution that can do it.
Wow. Well, I'm excited to share that, with the world.
Yeah.
Right? This is super cool. We get to put this message in a bottle and share it with as many people that are intrigued by it, and I think there's going to be lots.
Right.
And I think the things that you've shared with us today have been like super inspiring and are going to inspire some people to not listen to 90% of their friends and take the leap. Right? Now, there was 90% of the people that you asked about LiveFit thought it was a crazy idea.
Right.
They're like, Nick, you're never gonna do this, right? You can't do that. You can't package meals. You could barely cook. Well, I'm sure you could after 1 day a week for what 70 weeks, right?
The Midnight Chef.
The Midnight Chef, man. Hey, I'll buy it. So there's 90% of the people that said you're crazy for thinking this. How many people around you these days, if you were to tell them your idea, that they would think it's crazy? Like I'm sure now, remember you mentioned associates versus partners and people, right? Those people that you're around now, are they the people that you're around back then?
It always changes. You meet a lot of new people along the way.
Yeah.
And, I think the way I view it now is you're kind of like a train, right?
Okay.
And you stay focused on, adding coal to your engine.
Okay.
And whoever wants to hop on or hop off can.
Yeah.
But you just maintain what you're doing.
Okay.
And you'll attract good people.
Yeah.
Right?
So I was going to ask, like, how, if you were in a situation, there's a lot of people in this situation, right?
Yeah.
Might be like, I told someone my idea and they think it's crazy. Dang, I'm not going to do anything about it. How do you, like powering through and getting the motivation, that's going to come from within.
Right.
But how would you go about changing your network if you weren't, let's say, around the right people that could, help inspire, help fuel you?
I think don't be shy. If there's people that you admire, don't be shy to reach out to them and connect with them over coffee.
Yeah.
Whatever it might take.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, just being sincere with yourself and with other people about what you want to accomplish is great. And that's kind of inviting them to be on your train or not, right?
Yeah.
But, if someone says, hey, I don't believe that train is going to make it, you could be like, all right, well, I see the tracks. I got enough coal here. I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
Right?
That's crazy. So where is the train headed right now?
We want to make a massive impact on the world's on the world's plastic issue.
Okay.
What I've learned to date is that I know I have the ability to make an impact.
Yeah.
I know I have the ability to learn if I don't know something. or attract people to the table to help on my journey if I don't know something, people who might know.
Yeah.
Right? So we have the ability to take trash. We have multi-billion-dollar partners that have, we're talking about the major waste management companies in North America, even a group out west that takes all of the plastic waste, or actually all the waste, off of cruise ships,
Cool.
of every single port in British Columbia.
Wow.
Right? So I'm not going to be the one that is going to the beach and picking up plastic myself. I will, right? But that is not going to be the most efficient way to actually make an impact on the world's plastic issue. It's working with the people who are already collecting all of this trash.
Yeah.
And then we have a process to dissolve that trash and upcycle it. So that's what I'm going to do. That's our next steps, is to bring more partners like that on board.
Yeah.
We have the solution. We have we're opening up a facility here in in London, Ontario to start. Our second facility will be out in Vancouver, and then we're going to go across North America into the U.S. and we're going to keep snowballing after that.
So there's a lot of goals, not only for Denovia, probably also for LiveFit, and probably the worm. What's the worm farm called?
The Wormery.
The Wormery.
Yeah.
What else have you got in the portfolio right now?
I've gotten into real estate.
Okay.
Into a lot of real estate and a lot more real estate.
Yeah.
We are looking to make a big impact on, there's a housing crisis in Canada.
Yeah.
There's a financial opportunity to buy assets that you can convert into real estate, into residential real estate.
Okay.
So that helps with that. There's money to be made on that side, which is great.
Yeah.
We're continuing on the food side. We're in the middle of a merger right now.
Okay.
With an American entity. We're buying them.
Cool.
So which is going to add, it's going to bring our revenue up substantially. We're going to have a pretty heavy American footprint on the food side. And then on the clean tech side with Denovia, that process, we are in the middle of opening up our first full-fledged plant.
Yeah.
That will be able to dissolve tons and tons and tons of plastic daily.
Wow.
And upcycle that plastic waste into a material that you can sell and make money.
Okay.
So we're talking about, on one end of the machine of the Denovia process, there's material or plastic waste going in one side that people are actually paying us to take.
Wow.
And then we dissolve it, upcycle it, and we sell it on the other side for about $3,000 a ton.
Crazy.
USD.
Yeah.
So it's a money printing machine. I think I'm at the stage of my life where money, sure, it's exciting, but it is not like, oh, I'm rich. Like, I don't really give a shit about that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, oh, we've got more blood to pump into our
we've got more coal to keep the train moving. Let's
exactly.
go.
It's more coal to keep the train going faster and bigger and bigger, right? So that's what excites me.
What data are you paying attention to in each of these organizations to make sure you're staying on track? There's got to be something if you're running, let's say six different shops, right?
Right.
You're not cooking anymore. Let's face it.
You have to have great management on board.
Okay.
I have found that if you have poor managers, nothing gets done.
Yeah.
So you have to have the right people around you, and people who can run systems. When you have good people, they will run machines properly, and that is something that you have to be very diligent on, because people might be very nice to your face, but they might, as soon as 5 o'clock hits, or even 4, they might leave work early. They go home, kick their feet up on their, their coffee table and watch Netflix and have popcorn for the night.
Yeah.
Well, I'm the one staying up at night trying to make shit happen, right? So it's like you have to make sure that people around you really know what they're doing, and they're willing to do whatever to make that machine work perfectly and seamlessly. So by saying that, you also have to really take care of those people. If those people are running that machine perfectly, you have to incentivize them to do so as well. Whether it's stock options, a little bit of the company, or but unfortunately some people just become demotivated, and you have to kind of make sure there's the right people around you. But the entity is big now, right?
Nice.
We have a big entity, and you have to have very smart academic people in their places running these different silos.
Very cool.
So would I say I'm the most academic person in the room? No. But the people who do run the different silos of our entities.
Yeah.
They're very academic.
Crazy.
And we're talking about some people like partners of mine, that went to Oxford or Ivy, whatever it might be, right? And these all stars that are aligned with you and that are truly partners with you. I don't want anybody to work for me. I want people to work with me, right?
Yeah.
So there's a big difference, and typically when people are partnered with you, they're working at the same speed as you, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of these dips of what we were talking about in your journey are actually fantastic learning experiences because you learn the most from your dips, not your highs. When you're on a high, you don't learn anything.
Yeah.
Actually, it's worse for you because you're not motivated. You're like, oh, I made it, or made it to your goal, but then you're like, oh, what's my next goal, right? So you're not really motivated to rush to the next goal because you might be living your version of the life, right?
Yeah.
So it's fascinating how it works.
What dip are you most grateful for?
All of them. they all came with different value.
Yeah.
They really did.
100%. So if you were to, let's say, ask, I know you mentioned Buffett earlier. He's what, 80s, 90s?
He's old.
He's old.
Yeah.
And now if you were to talk to the Nick that's Buffett's age, what question do you think you would have for him? And what answer would you have? What answer do you think he would give you?
What question would I have for him? Jeez. It's a really hard answer.
You like that one, eh?
It's really hard question.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'd ask my future self.
Yeah.
It's hard looking back at it.
I know, right?
I don't know. Help me out here.
I don't know. I was just curious. It seemed interesting. I've never asked that before. But something, and I have a feeling like you're very pensive. You probably think a lot about things, and I was curious just to know if there was something to mind that you're really curious about, because oftentimes, the answers that we question often, but nobody really has the context that we do about our situation, and oftentimes we would give someone else the advice, and it's very clear, it's very easy to follow. But the moment that we try and internalize it and think about it, it doesn't really come out as clear. So I was curious if you would have some question that was top of mind that you'd be able to put into a sentence, but you're probably going to sleep on it.
It would definitely be, because at one point of my life, I was so focused on financially driving myself and our group. And, you go through waves, but I think it's also making sure that you don't lose sight on, ultimately you're going to be out of balance.
Yeah.
Talking back to the sim analogy, the Sims game.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you're balanced. That's how you really enjoy life. I think also happiness, it's a very cliche thing that people ask, but what is it, right? That means something different for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Happiness, excitement is excitement, right?
Yeah.
Buying a Lambo or something, cool, exciting.
Until it's not.
Until it's not. You remember when you got your first skateboard or whatever it is, it's exactly the same thing. You're accelerated for a little bit, and then that kind of dissipates. But happiness, may mean a sense of calm, of no worries, zero stress. That you have achieved and you're proud of yourself and you're, so I think the question to myself then, would I do anything differently? I don't think I would. I think life is a journey, right? And you just go along with it and do what you want to do.
And when are you happiest these days?
When I'm happiest?
Yeah.
I think when I'm happiest is when I achieve some level of goal, and then I have balanced myself properly while achieving that goal. That is nice.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, we appreciate you taking the time. I'm sure a lot of our guests are going to be happy to hear your story, and I'm truly honored. So I really appreciate you. But before we rock out of here, where can we find all your things? And if you had one question for the audience, if they could do anything for you, you've been so gracious to share, a lot of your past experiences with us. Right. If you could ask one thing, what would you want them to do?
I think to follow my journey,
Okay.
because I am heavily motivated on, making an impact, and just following my story helps and
Yeah.
sharing it,
Cool.
right? Because with Denovia, we're looking to change the world, and having people follow in with my journey is very motivating. So, helping me with the buzz is fantastic.
Cool. All right. We'll make sure to like, share, comment, do all the things.
Amazing.
And thanks so much for being so gracious with your time. And thanks to y'all for watching.
Thank you for
Peace.
having me. Peace.
There it is.
Thanks so much for tuning in to yet another episode of 100 Ways to Make 100K. I hope you enjoyed meeting Nick Spina just as much as I did. He broke down the story of how he went from Gatsby's to Live Fit Foods, Ethi Food Group, and is changing the world through the reduction of plastics with Denovia Labs. He got to tell us his first 100K in a year, 100K in a month, and 100K in a day. So once again, I'm your host, Javon.ca. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of 100 Ways to Make 100K. I can't wait to introduce you to our next guest in our next episode. So make sure you stay tuned, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.